If you have a burn pit or love bonfires, then you'll have a supply of wood ash to use as a free fertilizer. If you burn pressure-treated wood, kitchen garbage, or household waste, then I wouldn't suggest using it as a fertilizer because that would contain toxic chemicals. However, if you just burn plant debris, branches, and logs, then this makes a wonderful free organic fertilizer for your green space. It does have a high pH of 9 to 13, so use it sparingly around acid-loving plants like azaleas and blueberries because they prefer a pH of no more than 5.5. A lot of people discuss about how to neutralize it and change the pH, but I don't worry about that because it's never been a problem, at least for me. Also, don't worry if it contains small bits of wood because those will degrade amongst your plants over time. If you've ever seen songbirds take dust baths in sand in a sunny location, this is a step up from that. This is a dust bath made of wood ash. So I take maybe 3 or 4 containers full and I put it through a fine strainer so that it's a very fine powder. And I put it in 3 shallow containers and I place one each in an area that's not going to get any rainfall so it will stay nice and dry. Usually I put one in my she shed and then one in the tool shed and one under the front carport. Carolina wrens love taking dust baths in the wood ash. And if you haven't tried this before, you're going to be pleasantly surprised to watch the antics that they come up with. Some of them will sit and wait for one to get out of the dust bath so they can take a bath. And many times the Carolina wren will bring her babies to take baths. So it's a very rewarding thing to do. So give it a try when you clean out your burn pit. Wood ash is primarily calcium compounds. It also contains minerals such as potassium, magnesium, and phosphorus. This combination can give your plants vigorous growth. In fertilizer lingo, the nutrient profile is 013 NPK. N being nitrogen, P being phosphorus, and K being potassium. The exact amount of nutrients varies by the age of the ash, the woods used, and how much rain has washed through it, which will deplete some of its nutrients. Hardwoods produce more ash mainly because of their mass, but nevertheless, if you burn regularly, the ash accumulates much more than you may think. I much prefer a profile similar to wood ash for fertilizing my plants because it's much more balanced and it's much gentler on the plants. I've always preferred organic fertilizers like worm castings, chicken manure, liquid kelp, and fish emulsions. Most synthetic fertilizers are high in nitrogen, which if you use it too often can cause your plants to produce yellowed leaves. That's caused by nitrogen toxicity. Another downside to using synthetic fertilizers is that they build up salts in the soil, which can increase to levels that can damage your plants, especially if you're doing a lot of container gardening. So when I clean the fire pit out and remove all the excess potash, wood ash, I put it in a big wagon and I roll it around the yard and I dump shovelfuls around the plant depending on the size. If it's a small plant, I'll do 1 shovelful. In this case, it's a really big elderberry, so I did a couple of shovels full. And I just drop it on the ground around it. And throughout the next few months, as it rains, it will fertilize this elderberry. So if you get a chance to try this, I would suggest it. I mean, your plants will just look insanely gorgeous once you give them this boost of food. So this is generally how I use the wood ash from the burn pit. My lollipop verbena have been mulched really heavily with leaves. So I just fill the wagon up and I take it around the yard and I just toss shovels full of the ash around the plants. So it gets watered in gradually if I water the plant with the hose, and if not, then it gets watered in when it rains. So it's not a huge boost of potash to the plant, and they thrive in it. They really love it. Here's another plant I just put the ash on. This is a dahoon holly. So as you can see, I just kind of make a ring around the plant. In this case, it's a pretty large tree, so I do 3 or 4 shovelfuls and make kind of like a donut shape of the ash around the base of the tree. And it'll gradually leach into the soil as it rains. I just wanted to show another example of how I apply this. There's no rhyme or reason to it. This is my eastern redbud, and I just shovel. In this case, it's a large tree like the holly, so I put about 3 or 4 shovels full around the base of it. And over the next couple of months, when it rains, it'll water it in. If you're familiar with growing American black nightshade, you'll know it usually has thin, wispy stems and stalks. And they don't usually get all that beefy, but this one has really reacted to the wood ash in an amazing fashion, which I hadn't seen before. This is in a pot with my key lime, and I put wood ash on it a couple of weeks ago. The nightshade has turned into a hulk of a plant. Its stems have grown big and meaty, and the leaves are huge and gorgeous and lush. And it's starting to put out a flower. Not sure if it'll focus, but there's a flower right in the center there. So wood ash, it's kind of like put it in and forget about it. So I put it in my pots and I forgot about it, and then all of a sudden I noticed how amazing this nightshade was looking. Now I like to grow nightshade for the songbirds. They love to eat the ripe berries. So I usually just grab a handful of seeds and scatter them around the property, put some in the flower pots, because the birds are always visiting the flower pots looking for bugs and seeds and things like that. So if you get a chance to try American black nightshade for your songbirds, I would say definitely try it. Well, I didn't video every plant in the yard that I put the ash around, so I can't really do before and after on everything, but I went around today and realized after a couple of weeks, many of the plants are really appreciating the extra nutrition. My lollipop verbena has boosted out with flowers, and so many of my other plants have started putting out new growth, and they're looking stronger and more lush. I don't generally fertilize things in the yard like trees and native asters and things like that. So it was a nice surprise to see them enjoying the extra nutrients. My coral honeysuckle really appreciated the wood ash. It's got new growth and a lot more flowers. I don't usually fertilize my natives that are in my green space because they're native and they've adapted to grow on natural rainfall and the natural resources they receive from the environment. It's honestly, for me, way too expensive to fertilize everything in my yard, and it's way too much physical labor. In this case, I sprinkled some wood ash around the inside of the border, and occasionally I water it so it kind of gets into the soil in a gradual fashion. But most of the time I don't fertilize anything. Maybe once a year I do the wood ash. And I'm glad to see that some of my plants really appreciated it. There's another after shot. This is my yellow anise. All of this new bright green growth is a product of the wood ash application. So it does have a few flowers here and there, but they're really tiny and difficult to see. I think there's one in there somewhere. Yes, right in the middle of the screen. Yellow anise is a really nice plant for wet sites. Here's another angle of my yellow anise. This particular stalk right here has gained probably about 10 inches of new growth in the last 2 weeks. None of the flowers are open. I know I said in the previous clip there was a flower, but it's actually just a flower bud. So it is producing flower buds. But all of this new growth is from the wood ash application. There's a teeny tiny flower bud right there. Yellow anise is also a really good privacy screening plant since it's evergreen. Here's an after picture of my beautyberries. This is like 3 I have in the backyard. And it spurred on a burst of flowers. So it really appreciated the wood ash applications. All of these are getting covered with flowers. And pretty soon we'll have some gorgeous berries for the birds. Here's an after shot of my pinebarren goldenrod. This is one of the patches I have. I have 2 or 3 around the property. And this will be blooming in a month or 2. So the application of the wood ash, like the yellow anise, it gave it a bunch of new growth at the tips. So that should produce some really beautiful flowers in a couple of months. They send runners out, so I try to just let them grow in the patches they grow in and just mow around them instead of fighting them. Fighting nature's a really big chore, so I try to work with nature and just work around the plants that come up, and I let them do what they want and appreciate them while they're blooming. The Magnolia has definitely appreciated the wood ash. It's got clusters of new leaves at every branch. And I actually didn't water this in, but we did have some rain a couple of days in a row, so it did wash it in enough. So hopefully I'll have some blooms pretty soon. Here's my giant milkweed, and this is about 2 weeks after I put out the wood ash, and it has grown twice as tall. So it's doubled in size, and it's put out a ton of gorgeous little flowers. Actually, gorgeous big flowers compared to a regular milkweed. This is another one that's really appreciated the application of the wood ash. Here are some of my container plants that I used the wood ash on. On the left is a Carolina wild petunia. In the center is giant ironweed. And on the right is scarlet milkweed. The ironweed really appreciated it, and it's shown that by a beautiful flower cluster that shot up and it's forming. So it really did well after the wood ash application. The wild petunia has set tons of flowers, and it's looking really gorgeous with all of those beautiful lavender blooms. Some wildflowers don't do well being fertilized, but these three did great, and they've put out lots of new blooms. I would suggest trying it first to make sure your wildflowers are okay with the added nutrients. Some wildflowers will get long and lanky and struggle with too much nutrition. So I would say try it first and then see how it goes. I hope you get a chance to try wood ash as a free fertilizer really soon. So enjoy your free fertilizer. Enjoy your flower gardening, butterfly gardening, and wildlife gardening. And enjoy your green space, and I'll see you soon.